All right, my name is Dylan Skelly, and this is my presentation on the Siemens airdrop campaign. Just a heads up, if you don't want to watch this video, you can instead go into each slide, and they each have their own recording. You'll see them in the bottom right. All right, so some background on Siemens. They're a German manufacturing company located in Munich, or headquartered there. In 2018, they reported 83 billion euros in revenue and 378,000 employees. They offer a bunch of different products from construction, software, automation, power, health, finance, and a whole lot more. And on the right-hand side, you can see their logo, which focuses on ingenuity and innovation and all that kind of stuff. So output and impact objectives. So this was not very easy to find. They didn't archive this campaign as well as they did other ones. They actually have a database where you can search up all their past press releases, and for some reason they didn't do that for this campaign. It seems like it's been unlisted from their database, and I imagine that has to do with the mixed reception that this campaign received in a way. Either way, the head of communications said the purpose was to create awareness, highlight possibilities, and inspire creative solutions during a crisis. And the PR company that worked on it, called Atmosphere, highlighted the success of the campaign in terms of media impressions, so you can kind of get what they're going for there. So, campaign timetable. So on December 11th, 2017, they released the press release via their Twitter, their African Twitter specifically. That same day on the 11th, the head of communications, Keshen Govinder, goes and speaks to Power 98.7 about the initiative. Over the next 3 days or so, dozens of news outlets report on the initiative, and it gains a lot of press, mainly in South African publications, but also some international ones. On the 15th, the campaign was so successful that they hand out 5,000 liters of water, or at least the vouchers for them, within 5 hours. And on December 21st, 2017, they post a short wrap-up video. There was a longer one at some point, but it's been unlisted from their YouTube page for some reason. So, themes and key messages. So they clearly wanted to highlight creative solutions during a crisis, right? That's something they talk about a lot and was featured a lot in their ads, wrap-up videos. They also wanted to bring awareness to the water shortage, and they wanted to show that efficiency can solve problems. And you can kind of see the efficiency theme going on the right. So in one of the wrap-up videos, they showed, that you're paying for 23 kilograms of water, and you're paying that CO2 tax, you might as well, fill that wasted space with water. So that's where that theme kind of comes from. Detractors said that this was inefficient, right? The website link right there leads to an article that basically says that if every person that flew the air route that they're talking about brought with them, 5 liters of water, it would only support Cape Town for 4 seconds. That's if every single person brought water for a year. Millions of gallons would only last like 4 seconds. So, yeah. So some people thought it was a marketing ploy basically, and then environmentalists were harping on the fact that this is just an inefficient way to move water, and it hurts the environment. So actions and special events. So they released the press release. That's what kind of started this whole thing off. And as you can see there, oddly enough, it's not listed anymore. They promoted the event via social media. So they tweeted on there a lot, and they promoted on their Facebook and other places. They teased the event via transportation advertisements and through radio appearances. So we kind of talked about this earlier. The head of communications went and talked to a few radio stations, and they talk about in one of their wrap-up videos that they promoted it via transportation ads and alerts and things like that. Lastly, they hosted the event, obviously, and it was very successful. And on the right-hand side, you can kind of see a picture of the tweet they sent out to start the campaign, and that link at the bottom is where the press release is supposed to be originally. So media channels used, this is really straightforward. So obviously they used YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. right? The two main ones were Facebook and Twitter, but they obviously listed their wrap-up videos on YouTube. Obviously, they used a press release. Obviously, they used radio, right? And they obviously threw the actual event. So implementation, so they started the whole process off with the press release, then they promoted it, like we were talking about. They implemented, they actually threw the event, and then they wrapped up the event, right, afterwards. So evaluation, right, so Siemens highlights the following. So there was plenty of press around the event. Many people from Johannesburg responded positively on social media. There were requests from consumers to continue the, experiment. The popular airline in South Africa, I'm sorry, I can never say it properly. They actually allow passengers to bring 5 liters of water now when taking flights from Johannesburg to Cape Town. So that's something that Siemens retweeted and kind of highlighted, like, oh, look what we did. In terms of other measures of success, the PR company Atmosphere highlighted that there were 6 million media impressions, and the campaign won a Sabre Award. So out of 6,000 applicants, it was ranked like 31st for the Sabre Awards. And on the right, you can kind of see that airline tweet that Siemens retweeted. So summary, so the goal was to raise awareness for the situation in Cape Town and to inspire creative solutions. And obviously it was to create media impressions if you're looking at it from the viewpoint of Atmosphere. In terms of approach, they created a novel solution to the problem that garnered media attention. In terms of evaluation, so it garnered media attention, obviously. It ranked 31st best campaign by Holmes Report. They're the ones that give out the Sabre Award. And it did garner some negative attention, right? So that's something we could kind of talk about in terms of evaluation. Was there was plenty of positive press and talk around it, but there was some negative due to how they implemented it. Oh, and on the right-hand side, you can see basically just a picture from one of their wrap-up videos, just showing how many publications, talked about their event. So, key takeaways. So, obviously, a great idea can make a campaign. So, this entire campaign was built on one original idea, right? Promotion is important. This event was promoted through multiple media channels, so radio, social media, light advertisements and transportation and things like that. And I think it's also important to note that, it was promoted through multiple channels. That's important, but really, it's the novelty of the idea that made this so huge, right? If the idea was crappy and then it was pushed through all of these different media channels, it still probably wouldn't have garnered so much press and attention. But yeah, so great idea, multiple different media channels. And then lastly, you should probably consider the optics of things before you conduct them, right? So Siemens looked at it as them, right, bringing awareness to a problem. Many people saw it as a marketing stunt. And I think that largely has to do with the next slide. So recommendations. So I believe they should have created a corporate social responsibility program, a CSR program, basically something more long-term, something where maybe they would help try and solve the water crisis in South Africa, through engineering, through increased efficiency, through an awareness campaign that doesn't last just a day. Basically, I think it's the duration of the campaign that really hurt it, right? One day basically says, I don't want to spend a lot of money on this. I just want to bring awareness for one day, right? The whole campaign only lasted about, from the 11th to to the 21st. I mean, they posted on it later, but really it lasted about 10 days. If you're talking, from inception to completion and like wrap up. So I think that's what rubbed people the wrong way and made a lot of people think that it was just a marketing ploy. Right. So for a second recommendation, I would probably say to archive the campaign a little bit better next time. Obviously, I understand that the reason they didn't archive this one very well was because it garnered some negative press, and I think they just wanted to forget about it. We're like, oh, great, we had some positive attention towards it, but let's just simmer things down. So I get that, but still, I think there's a lot of redeeming qualities to it. It did bring a lot of awareness to the problem, and a lot of people, despite some skeptics and environmentalists, many people viewed it in a positive light. So honestly, archiving it better would have helped it to kick around the internet a little bit longer, instead of making it so hard to find, you know. Lastly, they should probably consider using multiple languages next time. So South Africa has 11 different languages that are technically the official language of South Africa, or languages. But the entire campaign mostly used English. I mean, the booth for the campaign in both locations had writing in English on it. A lot of the wrap-up ads were all written in English, with like no other languages written on them. Overall, it was very English heavy. Now, some papers and publications written in Afrikaans wrote on the matter, and I'm sure some other ones did as well that I just couldn't find because I'm searching in English. But overall, it did seem predominantly to be an English campaign. So now we're getting into the circuit of culture to kind of wrap this all up. So we'll start off with regulation. In terms of environmental regulations, we've got governmental, technology, economy. So in terms of governmental, they kind of played off the fact that the government has a fixed CO2 tax. So back to that one graphic where it's the plane ticket, they were playing off the fact that you're going to pay that CO2 tax for your 23 kilograms of luggage, whether you like it or not. So why don't you be efficient with that use and store water instead of just air, right? So in a way, governmental regulations actually helped their campaign and spin it the way they wanted. In terms of technology, it's important to note that South Africa's internet penetration is 51%. Now, different publications might put it at 60% or whatever, but from what I found, it's around 51%. So about half of the population of Africa or South Africa has internet access. So this campaign, since it was mainly pushed through social media, obviously is going to impact some consumers far more than others. In terms of economy, Cape Town is South Africa's most populous city, and Johannesburg ranks third by population. So these are very well developed areas they were hosting the campaign in. In terms of cultural norms, obviously this breaks certain cultural norms. It's not normal to think, what if I filled my suitcase with water? So that obviously had a big impact on the campaign. So, identity. So the target public, as we discussed earlier, most likely has internet, right? That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Same with, they most likely live in Cape Town or Johannesburg. Obviously, if you live in one of these two areas, you might participate in the campaign. You might have, heard about it from a friend or something. You get more out of it than, the rest of South Africa that's not near these two areas. In terms of corporate identity, right, Siemens' identity as a company is focused on innovation. On the right-hand side, you can see, expanding what is humanly possible. And that's a picture from their website. And you can even see in the small text, engineering marvel, right? So a lot of their identity is wrapped up in innovation, which makes sense because they're an engineering and manufacturing company. So obviously. National identity, right? So in terms of national identity, there's a couple things to consider. One, this is being sent out to a largely South African audience, right? Some people might have heard the message in America or other places, but it's mainly focused at South Africans. Siemens is a German company, so that has some impact on things. And lastly, it spread through South African publications. So a lot of the publications that spread the story, identify themselves as South African in origin. So that has something to play here. So production, right? What did Siemens want to say? So in terms of values, Siemens, like we said, values innovation and problem solving. That's part of their identity. Logistics, Siemens highlighted that many people wanted the program to continue, but they also stated that it was a one-day social experiment. They were very careful about that. And I think that largely has to do with logistics, right? To do this for a day is probably very cheap. To do this for a year is probably very expensive. To make a CSR program out of this would cost quite a bit more. So there were some logistics there. Lastly, in terms of like framing, they wanted to convey that, or they wanted to decode or encode the message that, they're innovative problem solvers, and yeah, they're helping to solve the water shortage or inspire people to solve it. So, representation, right? So, how is this actually going to form up? So, content, a creative way to solve a problem, format, a one day social experiment, method of distribution. They did press releases, radio, and social media. So, this is kind of the form that it's taking. It's not taking a CSR form, it's taking a one day social experiment. So, consumption. So, they encoded their message, they picked the form, the way they wanted to represent it. So, how did people decode the message? So, positive ways of decoding it. Many view the campaign as innovative. If you look at the first tweet on the right hand side, you'll see literally mimicking the ads like keywords pretty much, or the campaign's keywords. So, really impressive. Innovation, ingenuity, right? Literally their taglines. And then negative ways that you could have decoded the campaign. So, some skeptics view the campaign as a marketing ploy. There's a link actually to that website I was explaining earlier about, if everyone brought water from Johannesburg to Cape Town, 5 liters for a whole year, they would only, supply Cape Town for about 4 seconds. That's what that tweet is linking. And then, like I said earlier, a lot of environmentalists decoded it as being wasteful. So, not exactly what Siemens wanted when they were encoding that message. Lastly, here are just some references you can look over. And yeah, so that was the Siemens airdrop campaign. I hope you enjoyed it.